Hi everyone, I'm a Swedish citizen. I live in Sweden. I'm originally from Bosnia, but I came here as a refugee when I was a child. So I can speak Swedish and I can read the news and I can read statistics and research and articles and I can keep updated on what happens in Sweden. And so yesterday Donald Trump said something about Sweden.
We've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible. You look at what's happening in Brussels. You look at what's happening all over the world. Take a look at Nice.
So what really happened last night in Sweden? Nothing much. We have the whole Melody Festival thing, which is kind of a disaster. I mean, for your ears, it's really bad music, but it's not really a political disaster. So nothing special happened last night in Sweden. However, for the past year or so, we've basically been importing rape. Donald Trump is not wrong about Sweden. This huge influx of migrants has been causing quite some problems. Sex crimes have increased severely. Bathhouses and music festivals, I mean, the reports for sex crimes on those have gone up by a lot. And in 80% of sex crime cases pertaining to bathhouses, this is the official police report, 80% of the perpetrators were newly arrived migrants. I mean, we're talking about grown migrants being put in the same schools as 13-year-old girls. The results are always the same. There's molestations, there's rape attempts, there's sexual harassment. It's crazy. What's happening in Sweden is nothing short of crazy. The psych ward has been shitty for years, but it's even worse now. If you call them and ask for a shrink, you have to wait 6 months. Or maybe you just won't get one at all. If you ask for conversation therapy or cognitive behavior therapy, you're likely to just get denied. I mean, they're gonna tell you that, oh, you don't need that, but the real reason is the lack of resources. The state health department actually came out and said that hospitals, psych wards, and the dental care cannot operate properly due to the huge amount of migrants putting a pressure on the systems. And don't even get me started on the housing crisis. Before the refugee crisis even started, we needed to build apartments the size of a new Stockholm in order to accommodate everyone. And then we imported like 100,000, 150,000 refugees. Hasn't gotten better since then. I mean, the new norm nowadays is that if you're a student, you're gonna live with your parents for many years. You're not gonna have your own place. The waiting list in Stockholm is 20 years. The prices for housing is going up. I mean, I could just list shit after shit. I shouldn't have to. I live here. I can read Swedish. You can watch my videos and find out for yourself. They all have sources in the video description. The reason I make videos about my country is to improve my country, because unless we highlight the negatives, we can't change the negatives. Nothing is gonna get better if we just ignore problems and act like everything is fine. That's a recipe for disaster. And here's the thing. I'm not against immigration. I'm against the insanely irresponsible way that immigration has been done, both by the left and the right. If we keep up this irresponsible shit, nobody is gonna have any confidence whatsoever in immigration as an idea. Eventually. I don't see how this benefits immigration as a concept or immigrants as people. And don't give me that shit about Islamophobia, okay? I have a Muslim background. I don't have a problem with reasonable Muslims. I have a problem with shitty immigration policy. I have a problem with irresponsible politics and bad decisions by politicians. That's my problem. And now we're seeing these big media headlines about how Sweden has no clue what Trump is talking about, so he must just be a big old dummy. That's bullshit. Sweden knows exactly what Trump is talking about. If they were to see his whole speech in its full context, they could probably figure out what he's referring to. Forget last night in Sweden. What about the last couple of years in Sweden? Or the last decade in Sweden? And it's so annoying to see the media start picking at this immediately. The guy clarified that he's referring to this report that aired on Fox News. I understand that people have a negative image of Fox News. I do as well. But in this particular case, they're not lying. There is a huge problem with crime and rapes and sex attacks, sexual assaults, molestations related to migrants. This is the annoying thing about modern politics. I am forced to constantly defend people I don't even agree with politically just because everyone else is smearing them to pieces. Okay, there is no fair trial here, so to speak. The only ones who have no clue what Trump is talking about are the politicians and journalists who don't live with these problems, because they don't live in the same reality as ordinary people. And the journalists, their entire job is to act like these problems don't even exist, because they don't want to benefit the evil nationalist party, which is ironically benefiting the evil nationalist party. I've said before that Sweden is what Tumblr would look like if it was a country. I still stand by that statement. We have big problems, okay? We're not the socialist utopia that our government wants to give off. And our problems directly stem from our terrible, terrible, shitty politicians. They're lying, conniving thieves. They hate the people. They hate the people. Both the left and the right. None of them is in any acceptable shape. They're even trying to make it into a big deal that a former prime minister dissed Trump on Twitter. I don't even know where to begin with this one. A recent study showed that 8 out of 10 Swedes don't trust politicians. They feel that they are disconnected from reality and are more interested in power than actually solving problems. So let's just let that be the testament here.
We've allowed thousands and thousands of people into our country, and there was no way to vet those people. There was no documentation. There was no nothing. So we're going to keep our country safe.
That's a good idea, and I think you should do that, because Sweden didn't do that. Sweden felt it was racist to do age tests when we got so-called refugee children who looked like they're freaking 40 years old. And in one case, this even had a deadly outcome. I'm sick of this moronic idea that you're a racist because you like law and order. How can these people think it's inherently immigrant to not have ID papers? That's really the racism of low expectations. And don't even get me started on the rape. We had one case, there was a brutal gang rape. Really savage, sadistic gang rape. Where Interpol said that the guys were well above 18. One of them was said to be 30. And these guys just said that they were under 18. And one of them walked free. The others got less than a year in juvie. Not even prison, but juvenile detention. That's the punishment you get for choking and beating and raping a woman for hours on end while you're laughing. Because that's what these guys did. If you're gonna do immigration, then you have to do it right. Because otherwise, the only ones who are gonna benefit are the bad immigrants. The ones who come to your country to do crime and just have no respect for your nation whatsoever. Good immigrants do not benefit from the government pampering with bad immigrants. Because bad immigrants make good immigrants look bad. It rubs off. Because people's associations aren't gonna be very positive. So in the end, it just leads to racism. Now tell me, how does racism benefit immigrants? I don't see how this should be an inspiration to anyone. And, you know, don't even get me started on that vice deputy prime minister blah 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 of ours who called out Trump recently. Yeah, I did a video on you and I exposed you for the extreme hypocrite that you are, and you blocked me on Twitter. I sent you the video and you blocked me on Twitter. An official state representative blocked me on Twitter for criticizing her. That's very feminist. This woman gives Trump shit because he pulled funding for abortion programs abroad, while she herself, as the humanitarian aid minister, cut $8 billion from the budget. This is money that was supposed to go to food, clean water, education, and healthcare to refugees abroad. Yeah, really the right person to criticize Trump over humanitarian issues, right? It's like the politicians are just really... They just care about getting their big fat paycheck. They don't live in the same reality as ordinary people. They never have to experience the consequences of their decisions. They make sure to live far, far away from the multicultural dream that they try to push on everyone else. And it's just so tiresome. It's tiresome to see the journalists being in on this shit. They stopped auditing the power a long time ago. They're in cahoots with the power now. And they don't live in the same reality as ordinary people either. I mean, it's so crazy to see all of these people talking about diversity and then making sure to escape diversity. It's just amazing to me that the Swedish media is more concerned about the image of Sweden abroad than the reality of Sweden. They're more concerned about their freaking image than women being raped and dissipating welfare. Well, it deserves to be negative. Because if people, I'm gonna tell you, if people knew half the shit that's happening in Sweden, you would consider us to be like some kind of weird social experiment. You would think that we're some kind of soap opera, some reality show. This is the country that hands out bracelets to try and combat rape. This is the country that invests millions on circumcisions when hospitals aren't running properly and the police are underfunded. I hope that Donald Trump starts talking a whole lot more about Sweden, because we are a warning example indeed. Sweden is what happens when white guilt prevails over logic. Sweden is what happens when you make political correctness the state religion.